In terms of scandalous things a YouTuber can do, I believe being open about doing recreational drugs like weed and certain psychedelics should be relatively low on that list. At least compared to some of the most horrific shit that we've heard about other YouTubers doing. Hey, what's up? I'm the Pomeranian Prince, and I will never make it into an episode of Tales from the Trip. This is the story of how I did LSD for the very first time and what I experienced. So before I truly begin with this video, I do want to start out with the obligatory disclaimer. This video was made purely for the sake of entertainment and educational purposes. The Pomeranian Prince does not condone the usage of illegal substances in any way, shape, or form. With that out of the way, let's continue. So the story takes place in August of 2020. I was living on my own at the time, and one of my friends, Sweet Coon, had ordered a sheet of acid off the dark web, which, the more I think about it, that's something I really wouldn't advise anyone doing for two reasons. Reason number one is, first of all, that is super fucking illegal to do, and you can easily end up in prison, especially if you do not know what you're doing or covering your foot trails. And number two, you don't know for sure if you are going to be getting the exact drug that you want to have. Remember the whole Xanax scare where there were some Xanax bars that were laced in fentanyl? And unfortunately, that ended up killing little Peep. So we all gathered around the table, and I, Suikun, and Raikou all ended up taking our respective tabs. Me and Raikou did 1 tab of acid, and my other trip sitter, Suikun, ended up doing 2 tabs of acid. The thing about LSD compared to other drugs is that it's usually based in micrograms rather than actual grams. Just for reference, 1 microgram is considered to be roughly 1/10 of a grain of sand. And another thing is that LSD can take on the form of anything. This can be from a liquid to jello to even paper strips, which is usually the most common way to take acid. So the first major sign that the acid is working is what I can describe as a sour, deep, pitting feeling in your stomach. That kind of nauseous feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach where, you don't know if you need to move because you're scared you're gonna probably throw up, but if you stay, you're scared that the pain in the stomach is just gonna continue until, you throw up. Another major sign is that you start sweating like a sinner in church, and that does make sense considering that LSD does raise your blood pressure and it does increase your internal body temperature. Is that what it's called? I don't know, but point being, you just start sweating like crazy and your face gets really red. And of course, the most infamous sign of the acid working is none other than those goddamn dilated pupils. You know what I'm talking about. The pupils in question are so completely dilated that you could literally flash a light on them and they will not sink any further. They are just gone. I actually remember when I first looked at myself in the mirror when I was on acid, and all I could think to myself was, holy shit, I really am high as balls right now. But the thing is, I kind of don't want to get off on this ride. The acid really started kicking in about an hour into the trip, and I just want to warn you guys right now, this is going to be the part of the video where I try to explain something that makes complete sense to those that have done psychedelics, and try to make it make sense for those that haven't. One of the defining aspects of LSD and psychedelics as a whole is the visual department. You have probably seen it in the cartoons one way or another. The highly saturated colors, the rainbows, the smiley faces, things constantly melting, or probably seeing things that aren't really there, like eyes or fractals that are in the sky and lightning. Just saying that out loud really makes me sound like a madman, doesn't it? And that's not the other things that acid is known to do. Acid is also able to completely screw with your perception of just about everything, your perception of time, especially your perception on reality. There's a reason why the term ego death exists, and I think I quite literally had one on my very first acid trip. And for those of you who may not know what an ego death is, an ego death is quite literally that. It is when your ego dies. But the best way I can really describe it metaphorically is imagine and I know I'm stealing this from, what the hell is it called? Tales from a Trip, but it really is a perfect metaphor for it. But basically imagine your ego as like the bodyguards of your club, and then acid comes in and basically knocks out your bodyguards, and you are basically left defenseless. That's what an ego death essentially feels like. And when you are dealing with that, plus the bright colors and your reality changing and feeling like as though you're basically going to lose your mind, it's no wonder that acid is often considered to be a very life-changing drug, and it very much is. There's a reason why doctors are looking into psychedelics for medical research. Okay, but enough of that tangent, time to go back to the story time. So we went outside to take a look at the outdoors, and from what I could remember, there were a bunch of fractals and polygons that were all around the sky, but that's not really the freakiest part of my trip though. I looked at a light bulb for like 5 minutes or something, and I was able to see the smallest intricate detail of that light bulb. Primarily the little wire that connects to the, what's it called, the electricity thingy? I don't know, I'm not an electrician. Of course, when you are staring at something that bright for so long, you end up doing irreversible damage to your eyes. So of course, it got to the point where my eyes started hurting and I kept complaining about the lights being too bright. So we walked over to a local park down where we lived, and we ended up sitting on a bench and watched a segment from a show on Adult Swim called Off the Air. The segment in question is called Animals, and watching that segment made me feel like I was given the key to the universe. I was looking at the video, and all I could think of was like just how brilliant the animators were in terms of making that segment. I felt like I had, I understood all of the details, all of the little like subtle symbolism, shit, whatever. So we walked back to the house and we enjoyed the fractals that were scattered throughout the sky, alongside with some eyes that ended up sprouting from the small circles. I was also dealing with, I know from hindsight it's largely because I was very sweaty and nasty, and my feet were also sweaty. But for some reason, my brain just registered it as not me, but my heels had formed feet and was basically tasting the ground and savoring all of the salt and minerals that were in that but in the pavement of the sidewalk in question. Again, as I said before, I'm trying to make this make sense for people who haven't done psychedelics. I'm sorry, but it's really one of those things where, so much like everything else, all good things must come to an end. And as my acid trip was ending, we all agreed to watch the sunrise together. And it was truly a breathtaking moment. Again, no words could really describe how beautiful that sunrise was. Eventually we went back, and at one point there was a bee colony that was on top of some palm trees. I would have not been able to see them if I didn't hear them first. While I stared at the bees, I looked at my hand and felt the sensation of bees crawling inside my hand. Do you guys want to know the most fucked up thing about LSD? It renders you unable to sleep. Even after the initial trip, You will not be able to sleep until the acid says so. Throw that with how fried my brain was from the trip, it really sent me into a rabbit hole thinking that this was going to be my permanent mindset. And if I may be honest, I think it took me almost a full week to feel like everything was normal. I did end up ordering food to try to help myself sleep, but it didn't work. And also I do want to take a moment and sincerely apologize to the DoorDash driver that had to deal with me. I'm so sorry you had to deal with a clearly under the influence person who is spun out of their mind, but I hope that was a story for your colleagues, and I may have been high as hell on acid, but I always make sure to tip. And that is the story of how I dropped acid.